All right, I'll call it to order. It's properly posted on June 22nd. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 22nd?
Motion. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
4 through 8 are consent docket items.
I'd make a motion to approve 4 through 8 consent docket. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item 9 is the defined contribution for Paul Snyder in the Sheriff's Office. Is everything in order?
Yes. Move that we approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Defined contribution for Tanya Fisher in the County Clerk's Office.
Everything's in order.
All motion be moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
11 is defined contribution for District 2 James Cockbrenner. I'll move the item.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
12 is defined contribution for Nakia McGee from the Juvenile Bureau. Everything in order?
Yes.
All motion.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Defined contribution for Dennis Nation in the Sheriff's Office.
Move that we approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Danny, our OT report.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Mercy Hospital.
Helping with the meetings, Mercy, I guess, or
Down day.
Clement McBride.
Yeah.
That's our next meeting.
All right, for the month of May, we ended with a balance of $432,000. They have moved the $400,000 that the board voted on. And projecting out the rest of the year based on these numbers, we're going to end the year with about $82,000, but I did check with Ryan with InvestTrust this morning. The June forfeitures are way down. They're down to $12,000, a little over $12,000 for the month of June. So the current balance in the fund as of today is $45,771. So it's quite a bit down. This is going to be the lowest forfeiture year we've had, just looking back through all the years that we've had, at least back to 03, 04, so it's a low forfeiture year. But next 6-7 months or so, we'll build it back up before we can look at tapping into it again for next fiscal year for the old plan. Any questions?
Questions? Is there a motion to approve his report?
All motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor say aye. 15 is approval of a consulting service agreement between Sageview and Oklahoma County for the actuarial evaluation of the county retirement system and the GASB actuarial disclosures. Discussion?
It's got to be done in order for them to get the audit done on the defined benefit plan. It's the requirement by the GASB, which is our basics of what our accounting profession handles through using governmental accounting. So it's got to be done, and so I move to approve it.
Second.
All in favor? Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
16 is the action to approve the investment advisory agreement for fiduciary responsibilities for Mass Mutual's 457 plan. Speak to us.
Good afternoon, I'm Virginia Wright, and I have been responsible for working with your wonderful employees here for the last 16 years with initially Hartford and now Mass Mutual is providing all the administrative services for this plan. So the fiduciary, third-party fiduciary services that Mass Mutual utilizes is called InvestNet. And they offer 321 and 328 services for plan sponsors. They're headquartered in Chicago, but they're a subsidiary of InvestNet, Inc., and they're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. They have over $788 billion of assets under management, and they supply administrative support for several million plans. They have 43,000 advisors worldwide and support more than 3.2 million investor accounts. So It's a pretty large company, they're pretty well known. In fact, my own broker dealer utilizes them to offer services for third-party managers. We have over 200 available to us to use for our private clients. So it's a really well-known firm. They have an investment monitoring process they call SCORE, and the S stands for style, so they take a look at the investment options that are available through a wide palette of investment assets, and they look at the cost, the expense ratio of the fund, they look at the organization, which they consider as management tenure, and the strategy of the assets involved, the investment objective. They look at risk, that's the R. They look at standard deviation and beta. They look at the tracking error of the fund manager and other areas related to risk. Then they look at execution. They look at the 3- and 5-year return, how much of the upside they capture, how much of the downside they capture, and the Sharpe ratio to come up with this methodology to choose investment options. And then after they choose the investment options, and this is done on a quarterly basis, then they will recommend to the board that these particular investment options either be put into the funds that we have available here for our participants, or they remove those. And that's, of course, after the board considers those and makes their recommendations.
Questions?
Has the DA's office had time to look?
Yes, I had a question of fees. The fees are addressed in the document you proposed, and it says that the fees are wrapped up and paid out of participants, or the record-keeping fees, rather, right?
Okay, the fees are paid by the record keeper.
Okay.
So Mass Mutual will be paying the fees to the
But I
record
could not
keeper.
find where another document which set out who indeed was ultimately responsible for those fees.
Okay, they're in the fee disclosure that comes here on an annual basis, and it's also on the website. So I have that available to you, we'll make that available to you, but it does show that Mass Mutual will pay for this particular service.
But what's ultimately passed along to the county employees who's participating?
There's no fee to the county employees for this service.
But what about just for investing? Is there a fee charged to for investing?
The participants here pay the fees
Okay,
for the
there we go.
funds.
Okay.
So the 457, for all the 457s here, the participant pays the fees.
Okay, where is that fee schedule?
And the fee schedule is also provided on an annual, that's the one that I was talking about, that's provided on an annual basis here to the county. It's mailed, and then it's also on the website for
Okay.
them. And then the participants are notified about the fee schedule. They all receive a participation booklet that shows the fees that are involved.
The fees were not provided to me for review along with this, and it looks like they tapped into it, so I think that the board of trustees would be interested in the fees that are being charged to the town.
Okay, well,
I did request, that's what I requested, that I think that the DA's office ought to have time and be able to look at these fees and know that what they are, because I tried to find the same answer and I couldn't come up with a quick answer, that's why.
Well, to clarify, the DA's office would not be responsible for reviewing the fees and making sure they're reasonable, the board of trustees would, but I do think that the board needs all the information in front of it simultaneously to review it. So she also has on item 17, the administrative services agreement as well. I think that if you add in the fees, would that be all the documents?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking for.
Well, you wanted this board to approve the investment advisory agreement, which referred to fees that would be paid by the record keeper, but there was no assertion in writing that the county would be would or would not be responsible for those fees. And then you also were asking the Board of Trustees to approve the administration services agreement with the county, in which I could not find any reference to fees. So wouldn't it be fair that the Board of Trustees would need to look at 3 documents rather than just 2?
I'm not sure what they received. Did you get a fee disclosure statement?
I just, no, I didn't, and I was handed some things prior to this meeting that made me ask, has this been looked at, and the answer was ultimately no, and so I don't think that all of us have gotten a chance to look at the documents that I have in my hand, so I would think that it would be very important to let everyone have a chance to look at this, unless I'm wrong. John, has everyone?
I think it would be prudent to place it on next month's agenda, because she has some updated fee information. It's very interesting. It's different than what kind of was provided before. So if the board's wishes, we could place the 2 documents on next month's agenda for review and approval.
There's no problem with it being year-end.
It's a green contract, so it's one of those contracts with the 457 that's just automatically renewed, from my understanding.
Okay.
We're talking about 16 and 17.
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to defer items 16 and 17 until our next month's regular meeting.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you for your time. 18 is to receive the investment review from the defined contribution plan by investors.
You guys have this, but it might be beneficial to see it in paper. Probably don't have enough of that. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Were these all the same?
There should be 2 separate ones. There should be the one that says Oklahoma, or Employees Defined Contribution System, and then a 457.
Okay. All right, so I've got a pile of 457s.
And here's the PC plan.
Everybody got those?
I got one more 457.
I got those. You here. County, PC, and then this.
Good? Yep. And we'll give you some extras if people aren't here, but just as a reminder, so we do this once a year. We go through the investment performance, take you through where the investments are held, kind of which investments are being used and not used. We usually do it once a year with the RFP. We usually do it at the end of the year. The RFP kind of puts in a little bit of a limbo, so it's a little bit past our last one. But Mark Williams, the Chief Operating Officer, Chief Investment Officer for InvestTrust, will be going through this with you. The only thing I'll point out on the DC plan is you'll notice that the loan balance is not included in there. So when you look on page 1, you'll see that total asset balance is a little shy of what it actually is, because there's a $9 million loan balance. But since we're discussing the investment options, the loan isn't included in there.
All right, stick around. Good afternoon. We'll go through this. Again, I'm Mark Williams. I'm the Chief Investment Officer and the Chief Operating Officer. I've talked to y'all before, maybe the last year or the year before, something like that. So I just got a couple things I want to point out. If you turn to page 1, basically this is showing you the plan assets. And Ryan mentioned the loans at $9.2 million weren't on here. If you include those at the bottom, the total plan is $104,611,787. Just a couple things to point out on this first page. About 57% of the plan assets are in those top 4 funds. That's the Stable Value, Growth Fund of America, and then the 2 target retirement funds, 2015 and 2035. The bottom 17 holdings, or bottom 17 options, have about 7.6% of the fund assets. That's going to be important a little bit later in the presentation because of some of the recommendations we're going to make. Turn to page 3. This gives you an idea of the plan style box for fixed income. You'll see it's pretty conservative. If you think about it being more risky the farther out on the right that you go versus, say, on the left-hand side, and then also as you go down. So there's only 5 different holdings here. Mellon Stable Value isn't on here, but it's the most conservative of all. And again, that has about $30 million in it. Turn the page. This is the style box for equities. You're going to see significant overlap at the bottom. Those are the small caps. Remember, small is as you go down the page. Growth is to the right-hand side. Value is to the left-hand side. That significant overlap is going to have a bearing on the recommendations that we would choose to make as we go through this report. The only thing on page 5 is you see the TD Ameritrade. That's the brokerage window. That is also part of this plan. Okay, let's turn to page 7. And I'll just hit the high points. This is basically the cumulative returns of all the investments that are in the plan. The first one I'm going to mention is the Templeton Global Bond Fund that's at the bottom. This fund a couple of years ago might have had pretty significant underperformance. If you look at the 1-year return number, it's in the middle column. It shows 10.7 versus the U.S. fund world bonds at 3.7, and then the non-U.S. dollar bonds at negative 0.69. So pretty significant outperformance during that 1-year time period. Turn the page to page 8. This is where you get into the equities, which is the majority of the plan. Let's focus on the 1-year numbers. And if you go down to the large value, remember the way to look at this is the plan's investments are above kind of that light line that goes across, and then the indexes are right below it, in between the major bolding categories. So you want to compare the plan's funds to the index. So like that first one, the large value, the Russell 1000 value and the U.S. fund large value both had returns of about 14.6. The funds in the plan, American Funds, American Mutual was at 14.3, Delaware was at 8.5, and then Dodge and Cox stock was at 23.5. So it reads the same as you go across the page. You go down the page a little bit further. In fact, well, let's just skip that page. Let's just go to page 9. I'm just trying to give you the highlights here. You go to, and as you go down this page, this again comes into the factors. We're going into the mid-cap and small-cap, which were really not highly represented from a shareholder or from an employee standpoint that have actual holdings in these funds. So most of them had pretty good outperformance during the year. There were a couple of exceptions. We're going to make recommendations for those. If you look at the small blend category, about halfway down the page, Keeley Small Cap Value has trailed pretty significantly over multiple time frames. You've had a lot of change in management there. The guy that originally started this actually passed away. And so the company has struggled a bit trying to figure out how they want to invest these funds going forward. So that's one of the recommendations we'll be making. Go down to foreign large blend. Dodge & Cox International had a great year. And then if you look at that relative to Harbor International, Harbor has done well, but they've struggled the last couple of years. We keep an eye on them, but we still like what they're doing. And remember, anytime you make a change or when you think you're going to sell something, it's based on have they changed their process, have they changed their people, or performance. And performance is actually the hardest reason to get rid of someone, because sometimes it just means the market's going against them. But if it goes on long enough, it's got to be a factor in what you're doing. So let's turn to, and it's interesting, you had mentioned this before, let's turn to page 15. And what we do here is we give you the investment-related fees, and it's important that percentage of assets in the plan is the middle column, and again, the prospectus net expense ratio is that right-hand column. And the plan's funds are again above the little thin line, and then of course the major lines are division lines. So all of these in the plan are quite a bit below the category average, but one, and that's the Royce total return. That's 6 basis points higher than its average. It's on the next page. But I did a couple other calculations for this plan just to kind of see where expenses came in. And if you do a simple weighted average of the expenses, there's 34 options in this plan. If you do just a simple average, it's 50 basis points from an investment perspective. Relative to the category average, weighted average is 1.04, so it is about 47% of what the category averages are. But then if you do it on a weighted average basis, based on the holdings that the employees have in the fund, it comes out to about 30 basis points for what's inside the plan. And if you do that same weighting based on the category averages, it's 1%. So you're looking at 30%, it's 30% of what the category averages were. So these funds inside the plan are significantly less expensive than what you would get from a category average. Okay. I do have one handout to give you. Let's just take one of those and pass it. This, inadvertently, if you turn to page 99, what we did is, this is our recommendation summary. We've got several recommendations. The first one is American Beacon Stevens, Small Cap Growth Institutional. We think you should replace that with the Hood River Small Cap Growth. The exposure to that in this plan is 0.14%. That's what the weighting is in the plan. The second recommendation is to replace Columbia Acorn Z with the Vanguard Mid-Cap Growth. That's 0.25% of the plan assets. Now, the Delaware Value, that's simply a share class exchange, so that's to move it into a cheaper share class. That's a pretty easy one. That's only 0.82% of the plan. Keeley Small Cap, the one we talked about a little earlier, our recommendation is to replace that with Northern Small Cap Value. It's 0.43% of the plan assets. Morgan Stanley Institutional Small Company Growth, you've had that one a while. That was a pretty good fund, but it's extremely volatile. So what ends up happening is people have trouble with the highs and the lows. And we've seen them underperform. There was one year a couple years ago where they were up like 62 or 63%. But they can also be down substantially. So we recommend replacing that with the Hood River Small Cap Growth. That's 1.05% of plan assets. Neuberger Berman Genesis, that's another fund. It's a good fund, but they have a lot of style drift. So they will buy small, and then they'll let them continue to ride. So if you're doing an asset allocation as an employee, you're actually thinking you're buying small cap, but you're actually getting something that's quite a bit larger. So that style drift causes a problem. Now that one is 2.9% of plan assets. And then the last two are pretty small, the Royce Opportunity Investor and the Royce Total Return Investor. We're recommending this Northern Small Cap Value for the Royce Opportunity and the Vanguard Small Cap Blend for the Total Return. And those two are 0.57 and 0.24% of each of the plan. So in total, even though it looks like there's quite a few recommendations, it's about 6.4% of the plan assets. Any questions on any of that?
If we chose to make those changes, when would they become effective?
We usually give about 30 days notice to the participants, give them time if they disagree or we want to get into something else. And then after that, I mean, it's all behind the scenes, so we automatically move the money from one to the other.
They get mapped over.
Yeah.
And I'll stand up here as long as you want me to. I'll take all the questions you have. I just don't want to waste your time.
Questions?
Do you think Dodge and Cox stock will continue to do as well as it's been doing?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You're talking about the domestic Dodge and Cox? So the
large value.
Dodge and Cox DODGX, is that the one you're talking about? You know, it's interesting, they have, you know, a couple of years ago, that one, turn to page 40. And in page 40, take a look at that top right-hand graph, performance relative to the peer group. You know, it's interesting, and this is what kind of gets buried inside of cumulative returns, is a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, Dodge and Cox would have been near the bottom, but it has redeemed itself, and when you look across in that upper right-hand chart, whether you're looking at year-to-date, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, they're in that top quartile. And I'll be, you know, candidly, when I see performance at the 1 year and the 5 year level that's that far above, it kind of gives me pause. But in my mind, what you're seeing is that 5 year number is really being pushed up because the 1 year number has been so good. So I wouldn't say that it's that it's not going to happen, but I also think what they've done the past year has really worked based on where the market's at. If the market continues to act the way it did, you've got to remember a lot of the returns have come in since the election. If the market continues to act the way it has, they'll continue to do well because it's right in favor with them. Thank you.
Further questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. You want to have a motion to receive the report?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Want to do that for the 457 also? Is there anything you can say about that?
No, they're very, very similar, so.
I'm motion that we take 457 off.
Second. Any questions other than that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Dan, you want to talk? Sure, here.
The retirement board asked me to seek bids on director and officers insurance for this board as well as fiduciary coverage for this board. We received one quote on that, and I'll pass out the information that I received. But Will Beckman is here from our company we deal with, and I'm going to let Will get up and explain, because I don't have a clue about any of that stuff. Yeah. Looking better for me.
Yeah, make it improvement.
Just for the board's information, my name is Will Beckman, and we went out and we solicited a number of bids to get these. So we have one quote for you to review, but we've actually submitted to numerous carriers, and some of them were over 100,000 apiece, and we just said don't go there because we already had lower numbers, and we're not going to waste your time. My first question to the board is, you know, what do you want it for? These quotes are from great companies. You know, this covers the board, this covers the members. And, you know, I always tell people when we're doing this type of coverage, it's sleep insurance. It's really legal insurance, and I would suggest you have the legal look over the forms, but it's claims made and there's no retro date, and that's kind of nice. So something that happened 8 years ago, we picked up on some of this. And, you know, I know most of the board members, and I feel real comfortable with your decisions. But really, it's just something for you to contemplate, to see what you really want and see if you really need it. I'll be the first to do what you asked me to do, but I'm not going to tell you to buy it. I will tell you that if you think you might use it, then the cost is not prohibitive. It's not abnormally expensive. We insure a lot of public entities, and it's, you know, sometimes you get hit with things that you don't deserve to get hit with. And at least this covers a lot of the legal on it. It also covers, other costs, of course, the real cost of the assets too, so. But, Dan had called and asked that we get the D&O and fiduciary. And, you know, these plans do get sued occasionally. And so that's something you just have to look at, so. But if you don't need it, then I'll tell you that, you know, if you feel 100% certain everything you've done is great and you don't have to worry about it, then I'd say just, let it go. If you think there may be something, not only your action, but previous action that might come back, then you might want to look at it and see what's covered.
Questions of Mr. Beckman?
How did we come up with the $9 million loss?
That's what we were asked to, come up with. And, you know, that number you can, the higher you go, the more the premium, but anything over, you know, when you're doing policies, you can go to, 5 million, then 9 million, and you go up to 25 million or whatever, and it's gonna keep going down exponentially. Because the real exposure is the first million or two. But, you know, every number after that, so you just pick a number, to be honest with you. But that was the number we had requested that we needed to quote for you all to review.
Is it normal practice for entities to wait until they're involved in litigation to then buy insurance?
Well, first off, you can't.
Well, you mentioned something happened to us 8 years ago.
Well, no, if it's a claims made and you haven't had anything happen and unforeseen, it'd be covered. So if somebody erred, then you're covered. So, I mean, if it's whether it's management decision or investment decision or anything else, that's exactly why you buy it. You know, and that's, if somebody sues you, the real reason you buy these policies is for the legal, because you can spend $50,000 to $100,000 in legal expense fighting something to win. And so that's really the reason I do this. You know, when I'm talking to boards, I always recommend the coverage is important, but really what I call it defense costs and sleep insurance. And it covers each board member personally too, which is in both capacities, as a board and individually.
Is there a deductible?
Yes, it's on each one.
Oh, I see it, okay.
Yeah. And they're not, I mean, I've got some $100,000 deductibles, you know, I've got some with $250,000 deductibles. So, you know, anything, you can always, if the higher the deductible, less the cost. But you want to get the best for less. You know, 10,000 is pretty low deductible, so.
Any other questions? Is there any action?
I may be wrong, but I think the reason this came about, I may be speaking about other boards, but there was a concern, or the DA's opinion, that it would not cover civilians or a non-employee of Oklahoma County that participated in a board like this, or...
Well, if you read the documents, all participants, basically all your board is covered for your legal, but all the participants are covered too.
If you have the insurance.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
In other words, I'm the outside member, I'm not an elected official, so I would be covered.
If you're an investor
I'm just I'm on this board as the outside member.
Yes, you would be covered, yes, sir.
Okay, that's my question.
Yes.
And actually, I am paid so much a meeting day.
Yeah.
And I go through payroll, so.
And, you know, and you're afforded the tort limits too, but this is outside, this actually picks up and would offset a lot of those insurance costs.
Because there's
the legal costs.
As I said, there's two outside members of this board, which one is
No,
not here.
you would be covered under this policy, yes, sir. And, you know, my suggestion is not, since you're talking about 8-1, my suggestion is to review this, see what, because it's a good summary here. then ask legal to look at it and see what they think. And then, you know, we can always come back next month or next meeting or whenever. And I want you to know what you're buying. I want you to know what it will do for you. Or not do for you, but for the most part, these type policies are, they're sleep insurance for all the board members and and for the participants in the plan too.
Yeah, do you have any questions? Any requests?
No, this, item was originally requested by Bob Rabbit. I think it's one that's primarily interested.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is there any action that anybody wants to take on this? I suppose we need to receive this document to our records.
Motion to receive it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is there any other action on this item anybody wants to suggest?
Did the DA's office, did you see the quotes?
No, I
Is it
didn't.
there?
They're not
All right.
submitted to us for review.
We will. I will.
Do we need to,
I just got it.
do we need to defer this till next month?
We
We just received it,
We're just
and
receiving
then
the
I'll
document,
send
we haven't made a
legally.
decision, it's not for us to make a decision on that.
Just put another item on the agenda for anything anybody wants to do. Okay. And the results of the election. Congratulations to Sheriff Taylor for winning another term on the retirement board. I think I'm supposed to read these into the record. William Cunningham received 17 votes, Dan Matthews 101, P.D. Taylor 368, and Kenneth Wallace 41. 527 votes cast total. The term will begin on July 1st and expire June 30, 2020. Congratulations. I think we need to move to receive that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
More comments? David?
I'd like to say that, to say thank you to our office for helping with the election and everyone who did. They did it very professionally and seemed to do everything they could to accommodate everyone, and I appreciate it.
Anything?
I just wanted to bring up for comment, John, y'all do a great job, but in the future, it would be good for the sheriff's office anyway to maybe have a little bit more notice prior to the election. And 2 days at the sheriff's office really doesn't allow all of the employees to vote, and it pretty much eliminated about 40% of them by having them on Thursday and Friday. We need a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think we've done that in the past, but I have a lot of shifts that about 40% of the agency was never at work during those 2 days of election. If we have them 3 days, we can catch some of those people.
We'll make sure we add that next time.
I'll try to remember that when it comes time for the next election. Thank you, John.
Okay, any citizens to be heard? Seeing none, is there any new business? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.